This is how to turn a stock Stampede into this. So for this tutorial about how to mod it, you are going to need a couple things. You're going to need positive, negative wire. You're also going to need a battery tray. I have already done this. I'm just going to show you how it's done. So this one here is just out of like a stockade that I just cut out and put into the battery tray. You're going to need some wire cutters, a screwdriver. I just use this to strip the wire, or a wire stripper, soldering iron, soldering wire, heat shrink or electrical tape. I did also, if you want, you can buy a spring. I got the spring from memory. I think it was Tactical Foam. I can't remember the name, but it was on a website. That's where I got the upgraded Stampede spring, and I got a new Stampede O-ring as well, but you can just reuse the old one. And lastly, you're also going to need, this is what I did it with. So these are just standard AA batteries, but they're lithium batteries. So yeah, 3.2 volt lithium batteries. I have found though, when these actually charge up on the charger, because I got the recharge, they're actually 4.2. So if anything, it's kind of underselling what it does. So, and these are way more powerful than the, I think it's 6D type batteries. They're way more powerful than them, and that makes it fire much quicker, but it's not too much to where you have to rewire the entire blaster. So it's a very basic, simple mod that can give you great performance. So let's get into it. So as you can see, I've painted it, which I don't brag about my paint job, but while I had this apart, I just painted most of the orange stuff black, but some of it has come a bit off. But pretty much you're going to need to take out all the screws, so just be careful, that because there's lots of different ones where some are longer and some are shorter in the main body, so just keep note of where they are so you don't accidentally screw it through the other side of the gun. And here there's some smaller bolts up here, but just take out all the screws all along here. Don't take out these two because that's just holding the battery tray together, but obviously take the battery tray out as well, and pop that all off. So I will get back to you once that is all off. So once you take off the shell, there will be wires kind of connecting it to here, but I have previously just cut the loop. So there will be wires connecting this up here to this switch here, and there goes some of my screws. Basically all that is that's the safety for the blaster. So all I did was just cut it and then complete the loop there. So that's just because I didn't want the safety. So that's up to you whether or not you keep it, but if you snip it and just do what I did there, it is a lot easier to just take the gun apart and see it. So here is the actual gun itself. So you can see now what I've done to it. So usually there would be your battery tray in here, but I have taken it out and done this to it. So I've basically just broken the inside of it to let me fit this battery tray that was from a stockade, and which houses the 3 batteries. So you don't actually have to take it out of a gun. You can buy a 3 AA battery tray that fits 3 of them, but I didn't want to, so I just took it out because it was broken out of my stockade. So all you need to do, so you can see here on the positive and negative, so just make sure when you solder it that your negative is here. So this is the one on the spring there, and the next one is all the way around there, and that one is your positive, and that one's not on the spring. And then you just connect it up, so the one at the top is the positive and the one at the bottom is the negative. So don't judge my soldering skills. It worked, and that was good enough for me, so they're not going to be coming off, and there's no way they're going to be able to touch together. And as I said, I just put a bit of heat shrink there and a bit of heat shrink on there. You don't really have to, I just did that because it looks nicer. One thing I will note though is I did put like some, actually best thing I found is I just scrunched up and put some like tissues in here so the metal doesn't contact the metal on there, so nothing like catches on fire. Probably a good safety precaution to do that. But yeah, just getting into the gun. So the first step you want to do after cutting that, if you want to make it easier, is to, like I said, you break that and snap. There will be tabs up there, snap those out, and you also pull out the tabs on that side if you want to, because I'm pretty sure there's tabs on those sides. but you can actually just unscrew the bottom, and you can kind of take it apart, and it makes it easier. So if you want to do that, so yeah, all you need to do is grab your soldering iron and solder that on there. So with the wires itself, I do have thicker wires here, but that's just what it had lying around. But you could use the same wires as these, and just solder that on. The next thing I did was getting in here and actually changing up the spring to a heavier spring. So I'll just show you what I did there and how to do that. So I've just taken all those screws out. That's what you want to do as well. Very important. Note that this is facing up for the catch. Once you take this off, you can also see that this nub down here is facing down. Remember that, because it drove me nuts because I had it the wrong way, and the system wasn't working. All this wasn't working. So make sure that is facing down. So once you get that plate off, you can also take out the jam door, and you can unscrew this and get this out the way. And then once you do that, if you just push this up, you can basically pull the whole plunger assembly out. So you see there, it's unhooked there. I'll just undo those two screws and we can get it out. So once that's undone, you can just disconnect that, put that aside, take that out. Oh, sorry, that's my dog. Sorry, I just had to go tell my dog off. So once you've got that out now, you can undo these two screws here. I have actually replaced one because they do tend to strip when you put a stronger spring in. So all I did is I just got a screw that was a bit bigger, but not too big to actually crack anything. So just unscrew those two, and then you can pull out your plunger assembly. So you can just get that off there. Sorry, just trying to do this one-handed. So mine's, I did actually upgrade the seal, and it's got a really good seal. You could probably hear it. Right, let me get the spring off first. So this is the upgraded spring. So it's much heavier than the original, because the original was very light. So what I did initially is I put 2 springs in, but I found just a heavier spring, which it's always better to go that way, with a heavier spring rather than 2. Alright, and then we'll just separate this. So there is the seal. So all I did is I have the original plunger on it, but I've actually just put some electrical tape on it and then lubricated it all, so it has a very good seal. So the next thing you would normally do is remove the air restrictor, but I actually kept the air restrictor in mind because I find normally removing it in the Stampede doesn't give you a lot of extra power, and also I don't want it to break because this is a full auto gun. Every single time after you fire off a mag, you're always going to fire a couple more shots that don't have darts in them, which is going to just cause excess wear and tear on your gun and eventually make it wear out and break. So I thought it was good enough to leave it in. If you don't want to buy a spring and you're running a really light spring, then I would recommend to tap it out, because that will give you better performance if you're just using the stock spring, and it probably won't be heavy enough to break anything. So that's what I'll do. So once you got all that out, all you do is either bash that out or put the heavier spring in, which is basically just doing the reverse, putting it all back together. One thing I would also note when you're putting this gun back together, the orientation of this is very important. Make sure it is exactly as shown here, because otherwise it will not actually load the darts in correctly. It will jam and it will not go well. So make sure that it's in this orientation, it's on that side and it's locked in place here. I did also notice when I upgraded this that this return spring that actually powers this broke on me. So if you take those 2 screws out, you can actually see that there's a return spring in there. You can't really see it. You can just see it there, but about that length is a return spring. That broke. So I have a feeling that's probably because of the heavy spring and because of the batteries. So how I changed that is I just took it out of an old strong arm. It's the exact one that is for the slide on the strong arm. I just put that one in there and that fit perfectly, and now it's working beautifully. So you can do that. So there is always risk in modding. So it might just be that mine was old and worn out. But that is the risk in modding. You could also just check that this is working well, because that's about retaining the darts as well. So there's a whole bunch of safeties and all of that. I mean, it depends how much wiring you want to do if you're bothered to take things out, but I just wanted to do it as simple as possible. So all we need to do now really is just push this back in, slide that on there. Then you want to put this on in the correct orientation facing down, So the gears are facing down. Then you can put this facing down once you have that and that in. So I'll just be back once I've done that. So once that is all done and put together, it should look like that. So that's facing up and that's facing down. Alright, you can begin to slot it back in. So you grab this piece here, put that on there like that, and then you can slot that back under there, and then push it underneath here, and then you just, let's go this way, then you just push that back there, the spring, sit that in there. And then I do need 2 hands to do this, but all you need to do is just push that back on and just pull the spring back while you do that. Alright, there we go, so it should just look like that, and then you just put the 2 bolts, 2 screws back in there. Okay, so once those are in, just double check, this is what your wiring should look like, so it should look like this here. So, positive wire to there, negative wire to there, and again, that's where the springs are, just like that. And once you've done that, you just need to put this plate back on as well. So here we go. Just line it up and then put the screws in for it. So after a bit of wiggling around, we got that all in. So now, once that's all in, you're pretty much set. You just need to put your jam door back in. So just slide it in. Some jam doors are pretty difficult to put in on most Nerf guns. This one is like a piece of cake to fit in, and you'll know it's in because it has to press down a little sensor, so you'll push and then you'll just feel it kind of click in, and then it can just sit there. And then after that, once you've soldered that, and you've done that with the plunger tube, I would recommend putting plenty of lubricant or grease on it once that's all done, however you've done it. With that, either by removing the air restrictor or just by putting a stronger spring, and that's all soldered up and done, you're all set. So all you need to do is just put the top half of the shell on and button it all up, and then you are done. So I will get back to you once that is all finished. Also, a quick note, just make sure that this is lined up. So sometimes if you have this in the shell and this is sitting back here and you tighten it up, the mag release won't actually work. So just make sure that is pushed forward when you're screwing it up, and that will seat nicely, because otherwise it won't work. Okay, so now that that is all done up, you can slot your battery tray in. So all you want to do is just be careful not to jam up the wires. So when you put the battery tray in, just make sure as you push it in to kind of pull the battery tray up, just so it sits nicely there, not like all the way squashed back in with the wires. Okay, so once that's all back together, it should all fit nicely, everything should work. Let's just test once we put a mag in. There we go. So, I hope you enjoyed, guys. This should destroy stock class Nerf blasters. Even though it's an old gun, this would definitely bring it up. This would even beat something like a regulator, because I would say this shoots. I don't have a chronograph, but from some of the guns I've shot and off of what their readings are to this one, I would gather it shoots about 100 FPS. So pretty decent, and decent rate of fire. Definitely a very fun gun, and it's also great because it's not as heavy as it is. It's not as unbalanced as it is in stock form, because normally it's really back heavy. It's super uncomfortable to actually hold and use because it's so heavy, but it's much lighter now. It's much more balanced, and it's overall just way more fun to use. So I hope you enjoyed, guys. Just an easy way to get some high power out without doing a whole bunch of wiring and soldering. So stay tuned for the next one.